So a few weeks ago, I tweeted this. I need y'all to understand we are not beating capitalism with black capitalism because capitalism is a class-based system. The African American community has a problem that I'm not sure many of us know how to solve. As always, this is a new channel, so feel free to like, subscribe, comment, share. Let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, thanks for tapping in and listening.
We said that we work with anybody and form coalition with anybody that has revolution on their mind. We're not a racist organization because we understand that racism is an excuse used for capitalism, and we know that racism is a byproduct of capitalism.
August 13th, 1948, Chairman Fred Allen Hampton Sr. was born. Funny how much of my life has been circulating around a man I share a birthday with. Chairman Fred was one of the most polarizing people within the civil rights movement, taking steps to not only impact the community with collective action, but also with a profound ability to present the policies of the Black Panther Party as a collective movement focused on class solidarity. Hampton, quote, used his talent as a communicator to create what he termed as the Rainbow Coalition, an alliance of the Panthers with other groups organized around racial, ethnic, and ideological affiliation, bringing together groups that otherwise would have had almost no positive contact, including the Puerto Rican Young Lords Association, the Poor White Young Patriots Organization, and the Blackstone Rangers Street Gang, among other entities. The Rainbow Coalition provided aid to low-income citizens by combining the group's varied resources. It was socialism at its finest, at the ground level. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. This was enough for the government to want to get Fred Hampton out of there. They sought his destruction immediately because of the simplicity of the fact that he was showing the US population what would happen if you did collective action, what would happen if you started focusing on class solidarity rather than dividing into these estranged groups based on race. He was also in an effort to move forward the progression of the Black race, but it wasn't solely based around that. He showed very easily for a lot of people that this is what happens when you decide to cast off all of these other issues and focus on the things that you have common ground on, the things that are actually affecting each and every one of you. But once you stop having to deal with the things that are impacting all of you, you kind of start to realize that you're not so different. And with that, there becomes a stronger class identity. I've been circling around this topic for months now, most of my life, truly, but recently it's been on my mind after seeing the Joe Budden podcast have Dr. Umar on, and there was a Twitter thread I read recently that really put another line on the point of what it was to try to encapsulate Black capitalism. Is probably the best thing I can say here. In the Twitter thread, it is noted that one of the key features, with a lot of cited sources, I'm going to link this in the bio and the description, but with a lot of cited sources, it was noted that misogyny and sexism were one of the leading reasons for the downfall of the Black Panther Party as it stood in its glory. A lot of members, like a heavy amount of members, were women, and as things went on, they were being told not to talk about women's rights, silenced. We got to an issue of, it's been noted that Frederick Douglass called Sojourner Truth uncultured for her advocacy of Black women's rights. For now, just know that misogyny, racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, and many things that fall into this category are all a result of capitalism. The biggest issue that I see the African American community having is that, whether conscious of it or not, there's a deep-rooted desire to become that which oppresses us rather than to be free. I mean, I don't think Black people want to be an oppressor, but I do think that it's clear that the drive toward what we are calling equality is muffled in a system that works off of oppression. This isn't necessarily a call for more in the community to move away from capitalism, but to ask ourselves how Black capitalism is any different in its end result to what we have now. Yes, we move the Black community from the impoverished nature of a systemic oppression, but if we aren't oppressed, then someone else will take our place. Fred Hampton and Kwame Ture often made efforts throughout their careers in order to reframe the narrative of Black liberation toward a more socialist standing. Both men believed that the best way to defeat the oppressive system of capitalism and all of its creations, you could not just fight it with Black capitalism because it was a class issue. They were stern in the belief that they needed a system that focused on collective action, stripping away the need to talk about gender, religion, and race. As I deep dived into this, and this is just going to be me talking from now on, I probably will throw other things in here. There was a lot of research that came of it. In the Twitter thread, there's a lot of mentions between one of the co-founders of the NAACP being noted as being holding internalized racism, believing that half Black, half whatever children were far more superior in intelligence and any other measure of quantifiable experience. You go throughout that thread and you start to see instances of misogyny. And James Baldwin had a partner that he was married to. She was his cover or his closeted white partner. And he was too afraid to just be open about that, both in terms of misogyny and because of homophobia. But I mean, it was clear to a lot of people that that's who he was, not that he was somebody who dated a white man, but that he was somebody who was gay. Like, it was pretty clear to a lot of people within his space, outside of his space, that he was a gay man, and that was okay. Instances of hierarchy that are involved inside of misogyny pressed upon the entire civil rights movement in ways that aren't really quantifiable, or they are. I really wanted this video to be about misogyny, sexism, and feminism within the Black rights movement, but I decided that that needed an entirely separate video. One, it was a disservice to women, but secondarily, it was a disservice to just the simple fact that there's a couple of distinctions that need to be made. There's a lot of information. This video could be much longer, and I didn't want it to be too long. I didn't want to overload anybody with any information of that I was overloading myself with. That's why I brought this whole conversation back to the idea that fighting capitalism with Black capitalism is an inherently flawed concept. We already have Black billionaires, we already have Black millionaires, and it does not change the systemic oppression that we see in today. Even knowing that we have these people in place, even knowing that we have these growing Black communities that are trying to push a narrative of more Black capitalism, bringing capitalism into these spaces, the thing that is very clearly seen is that we need more class-based association. We are, after all, only 17%, 13% of the US population. It's not simply that we are only being oppressed and the goal is to just gain the power that the people that are oppressing us have. It is to gain the power and not to put anyone in the same situation. It is to gain the power and not become the oppressor. I've been constantly listening to, while writing this whole thing out, J. Cole's song that really went under the radar, High for Hours. In the song, he talks about how he is seeing the cycles of life take place, the racial injustice that happens, the things that take place within our community. He then takes it upon himself to be like, well, I'm going to change things. And so you follow him through this story. He narratively then meets the president. He has a conversation with him. He asked him, hey, why isn't like, why don't you do things to help us? If you, like, you're a black man, why not? And the president gives him a very solid answer. There's no way of knowing if this story is true, but you'd have to believe it, I guess. But the president gives him a very solid answer that change is slow. It always has been and always will be. Cole rebuttals with, but bump that. I'm gonna bust back until they kill me. Um, we get to the third verse, and this is where Cole starts to break down the flaw in that statement. He understands that now, as an older man, as a man who has lived more, he understands that we get the power, but you know what power does to man? This is a cycle that continues to go on. People at the bottom start to holler and they're like, hey, we don't want to be impressed anymore. So they fight, they win, and then they become the oppressor. And that's just the cycle. He notates this by paralleling it with an abusive household and the cycle of violence within there, where a child sees a mother get beat and then he becomes the father that beats the mother, and so on and so forth as things continue on. And he denotes that the change comes from you. It is starts in you. And while all of this is very impactful, while all of this is very real and very raw and very necessary, there is a quiet truth that he is ignoring. The quiet truth that he is ignoring is simply the fact that not only is it that the change comes within you, it is also necessary that you can't fight the same system with the same idea to get out of it. You can't fight the same habits with the same habit to get out of it. You must change the habit, you must change the idea, you must change the system, you must do something new in order to break through the confines of what this is. And so I take from that song, from my research, from everything that I have found, and I basically discern that the problem that we have as African Americans is that we need to understand that collective action is important. Yes, we very much so need to rise above all of the bullshit and stay together and build up our community, build up our culture. But we can't do that alone. We need other people. We need to understand that if we become the billionaire class, nothing changes for everyone else. It only changes for us. And I think a lot of people have woken up to the idea that, like, we can't just change one thing. We have to change it all, because if we don't change it all, what is the point? Then somebody is still suffering. Then we become like the victors in Hunger Games, you know? And so, yeah, I think that is something to think about. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like I said, like, subscribe, anything helps. New channel. So good to see you.